Hey, this is Allie. We're going to be talking about creating a Choose Your Own Adventure series using Google Sites. So with this activity, I created this for an 8th grade American history class, and we focused on the American Revolution. There are specific teaks we're focusing on the causes that led up to the American Revolution, so you'll see it sort of stops before any of the big stuff happens, and that's just because that's what they were studying that week, and that was their focus. So as we get into this, students, this is their homepage, so they read about it and they discover that they moved there for the king and then taxes were raised. So what are they going to do? So if they're frustrated, they're going to choose frustrated. They realize that they're a patriot. And then are they going to give in and just, be a loyalist, or are they going to fight back? And so through this activity, they see how different people created different impacts within the American Revolution. I would encourage you to have your students record their journey for each choice in a journal so they can kind of see how the different choices led to something different and impacted it, because there wasn't just one journey that everyone experienced through the American Revolution. That also adds some sort of a writing component for them so that they're not just flying through this, because it will go pretty fast if they're just clicking and not really spending time to think through it. So I would add in some sort of journal component. Let's talk about how I actually made this, though, since I kind of showed you how it works. So I met with one of my history teachers, and I said, hey, what if we did a Choose Your Own Adventure, just so the kids can kind of get the perspective of people during this time and the things that they were dealing with and why they were so frustrated. And so we met and we just kind of casually planned out what were the different steps and what were the different things that were happening during this time. So you can see here we start with the patriot, they moved, they were frustrated, and then sort of the different events that took place and the different path that you kind of followed. And you can see through my lines kind of what's circling back. This is a really messy note section. Like I said, we kind of were just brainstorming, but I understood my notes and the path of it. So I would encourage you to put this in whatever format works best for you, whether it's on a board or on paper or, a very structured Word document, something like that, just so that you can see the overview of what you want to include. All right, so let's talk about how I actually made the site. So I started a new Google site, made my homepage, I put the first choice for them on there, and then you can see that this is my entire web of hidden pages that they'll eventually get to. So let's say this loyalist page, I just made it. Okay, the default is for it to show up here, because typically with a Google site, you want people to have access to the different pages that you are including in it. But because this is a Choose Your Own Adventure, I don't want my students to see what's going to come. I'm going to choose the snowman 3 dots and then choose hide from navigation. And then that way, all they see is the page that they're on. They don't have access to anything ahead of them. And so that's essentially how all of this works. I just linked one page to the next, and I'll show you how that works a little closer up. So I'm going to choose Virginia for a second. So during this time, they were having to choose whether they were going to boycott or if they were going to trade. So here you can see I have my 2 options. So let me show you how I made that. So I went to Insert and I chose the layout with 2. You'll notice some of them have 3 or 4. It just depends on how many options I was giving the students at that time. So to make this, their first option is to boycott. I'm going to put that as their option, and I'm going to link. The great thing with Google Sites is you can link 2 pages within that same Google site. So on this, I'm going to find boycott, and that's how they're going to get to that page. And then I'm going to select an image. This had something to do with sewing and how they were going to have to make everything at home. So I chose a sewing machine for this one, just to sort of give them some sort of visual to attach the idea to. And then I'm going to delete that little piece because I don't actually want to add anything there. I'm going to do the same thing with, I'm going to trade with England and be considered a trader by my family. Highlight all of that, and because this is going to put them with the loyalists, I'm going to drop them into the loyalist page, delete that, and then I'm going to add some sort of picture. And so there are their two options. The other thing you can also do that I encourage you to do is click on the actual picture and then link there as well. That way, if they click on either one, it'll take them there. And they don't feel like they have to just click on one specific thing. And it also sort of helps just in case you have something, maybe you missed a link somewhere, there's a backup for you. Okay, and so then you would hit publish and it would be there. I'm going to go ahead and delete this so that's not duplicated. One thing that I did do is at the end of each Choose Your Own Adventure series that they got to, it had a button to take them back home to start a new adventure. So you can see on this one, all I did was insert a button. And then I'm going to link to the home page. And so it's going to put them back to the home page and they would start over and choose other option. Okay, from this point, you could just grab the link, make sure it's a published site, make sure you do publish it, and then send that out through Google Classroom or make it bit.ly. I will encourage you that this probably looks like a lot of work, but it really didn't take a lot of time. Really all that you're doing is putting a little bit of information and then linking to other pages that are already there and then adding a picture. I did find it easiest to go ahead and make my pages with the titles on them up front before I started adding information and pictures, just so that I could go ahead and already link to them. This activity was really great for introducing a new topic or unit. It allowed the kids to organically experience the different concepts without learning about them in detail first and then going back to make their choices. It allowed them to sort of make more honest choices because they didn't really know where it was going to end up at. It also allowed the teacher throughout the rest of the week in that unit to refer back to it and say, do you remember when you had to choose between boycotting and trading and, you know, that whole situation? And this is what we're talking about today. Just so it kind of gives them some schema to pull from, and it gives them experience with understanding the perspective of the people during that time. A lot of our kids really, they have a hard time putting themselves in other people's perspectives, and through this activity, they experienced it as if it was sort of happening to them in some way, and so it sort of just allowed them to connect to the ideas a little bit better. So that is the Choose Your Own Adventure series. If you have any questions, please let me know.